So thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you directly tonight and to talk to you about the most important thing of getting your students started, and that is figuring out how you're going to pay the remaining balance due after any financial aid or scholarships have been applied to the account. Hold on one second, because it doesn't want to change this. There we are. We'll get hold of it, don't you worry, but we're a good team. I want to assure you that you are working with an elite team, one of the best trained financial aid teams in the country, as evidenced by the number of national credentials the staff holds. And I will tell you that Kira is one of our best trained. She holds all 17 national credentials. That demonstrates that she is a subject matter expert in all of these subject areas that NASFA, which is our National Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators, provides. So she is quite knowledgeable, as are most of the team members in our office hold almost all or several of the credentials. We do approach our financial aid in a holistic manner. We want to assist every student with their unique needs while adhering to the NASFA standards of ethical behavior. So we will not steer you wrong. We will give you our objective advice. Sometimes, quite frankly, that's advice that you don't necessarily want to hear. But it is the truth and a very objective approach. So I want to start by setting the level of understanding a little bit. When we talk about how much it costs for a student to attend school, we're talking about the cost of attendance. This is not the bill. It is instead an estimate of how much it's going to cost a student to live and go to school for 9 months. So it's what we call the budget. Just as you might have a household budget, we have a budget for school. It includes expenses other than what comes on the bill. We use this cost of attendance in conjunction with the FAFSA results to determine what types and how much financial aid a student might qualify for. And as you can see, it includes a lot of things that are not necessarily presented on the bill. For instance, your personal expenses, things like laundry, right? We hope that our students are washing their sheets and cleaning their underwear on a regular basis. They need to buy toothpaste and occasional pizza, and they need to go home every once in a while. So we include an estimate of transportation and books and supplies and such, in addition to things that you'll pay directly to the university, such as tuition and fees and housing if you live on campus. This is actually the bill, the direct costs. So what makes up the bill? These are the things that you will pay the university for, such as tuition and fees, housing if you're living on campus, meal plans if you choose meal plan, and health insurance. I hope everybody out there, if you have private health insurance, you can opt out of the student health insurance. I hope you've done that by now. If not, then you'll want to visit the student self-service portal and click the link under Bursar tab for Wave Student Health. All right, so level setting, cost of attendance. This is the budget that we use. We develop this budget for students to understand what it costs for you to live for 9 months and go to school. And so there are components in the cost of attendance that are not included on your tuition bill. This is a much larger number that we work with than the tuition bill at Rowan University. And you'll see that we use expense estimates for things like housing and meal plans, even when on the FAFSA you indicated that you're living with your parents. And so chances are your student is not paying rent with you, but you certainly know as a parent, they cost you money. And so we include these items into a cost of attendance. Then we use the FAFSA results to determine the types and amounts of aid a student would be eligible for. And so when we talk about how much financial aid a student can qualify for, we're working with these larger numbers. This is the bill. And so by now you have seen the bill. Hopefully you've seen the bill. And you'll see that what is on the bill are called direct charges. So things that you're paying directly to Rowan University. The tuition and fees, of course, housing if you're living on campus, meal plans if you choose a meal plan, whether you're living on campus or not. You do have an option to choose meal plans even if you are a commuter. Health insurance will be on the bill if you do not waive it. We just talked about health insurance waiver, so we'll skip the spiel on don't forget to waive your health insurance. I will tell you that if you miss that deadline, which I believe is September 20th, if you miss the deadline to waive that health insurance, the university is obligated to pay the premium, which is what's billed on your account. And then once that premium is paid, then you have health insurance through the university. I will tell you, according to the Dean of Students Office, this health insurance is very robust and it's one of the best plans available. So if you do need insurance for your child, know that this is an excellent option for you. Tuition and these expenses are billed each semester. And the student will receive an email when their bill is available, and we will show you in a minute options to sign up for an extra person to get those notifications, because we do know students don't always read their emails. So the very first option to pay the remaining balance after the financial aid that has been applied is the tuition payment plan. And this is offered through our bursar's office. There's zero interest charged, but there is an enrollment fee, and the enrollment fee is charged every semester. If you sign up for it early on, then you'll have up to 5 payments to pay. The first payment, they're going to collect that $50 enrollment fee, and they're going to collect 20% of the balance. And then the remaining installments are made on the 15th of each month, and that's September through December. And then by that time, the spring bill will be out and you'll be ready to re-enroll in the tuition payment plan. Auto payments are available, so you can sign up to make the payments automatically out of your bank account, but they are not required. So you can choose to come and make the payments manually if you prefer. It's important to know that if your student makes any changes to their enrollment or housing or meal plans, or additional aid comes in or some aid comes off, if let's say you don't enroll full time or something, or we have to make an adjustment to financial aid, then when your balance fluctuates, so will your monthly payment plan. So be aware of that, and be very aware of that if you're signed up for auto payments. So how you would enroll for the tuition payment plan is the student would go to their self-service banner account and log in, and under the Bursar tab, they'll click the payment plan enrollment. It's essentially going to take them through the front door of rowan.edu ePay site, and they can create a user, an authorized user, and then you will create your own account. And then when you go to rowan.edu/ePay, you'll put in your email address that you use to create your user account and your password, and then you'll have access to see the bills. We recommend that you use your checking account if you are going to, actually pay cash or not use a credit card. Use your checking account instead of your debit card. When you use your debit card, it is processed through the Visa clearing system, and so there is an electronic payment fee. It's 2.85% of the payment amount. It's charged by the state's vendor. It's not our fee. We don't keep this fee. It's unfortunately just a fee that we have to pass through to you. And that can get quite pricey when you're making large payments like this. So while you are in the ePay account, be sure to sit with your student and sign up for a direct deposit of any credit balance refunds. We'll talk about those a little bit in the presentation, and sign up to get those emails and text messages when the balance information comes out, so that you don't miss any important due dates. I will tell you that the Bursar's office and financial aid, we don't spam you. We do send important information through emails, and sometimes we'll use text messages, but for the most part, all of our systems use emails, and they only go to the student email account. So one helpful hint I would tell you is sit with your student and make sure that they add financial aid at rowan.edu to their VIP list so that they get a notification right on the front of their phone when we send an email. The next product that I want to talk to you about is called Sponsored Scholar. And this allows students to create a personal crowdfunding campaign. This is available on our website through the Financial Aid Office. You'll see this ad scrolling across the top of our financial aid page. And to get started, you would click that little blue link there that says Start Your Campaign Today. This is a wonderful opportunity for people to show their support of your student, especially if you have aunts, uncles, or grandparents who want to make a meaningful gift. They don't necessarily want to put a check for $500 or $100 in a graduation card or slip a couple $20 in there and hope that it gets spent on something that is going to be very useful for your student. It's free for the student to use. The donor will pay a $5 fee, which is an electronic transaction fee. I will tell you, you use your credit card. You can use your credit card. You can use your debit card to make a donation. And so if you're following along, a $5 electronic transaction fee is a lot lower than the 2.85% fee charged by the Bursar's office. So if you are in a position to have to put your tuition balance on a credit card, I would suggest you investigate the Sponsored Scholar and make a donation to your student through Sponsored Scholar. We have done the math for you. If you're making a payment larger than $173, you're better off making your credit card payment through Sponsored Scholar and paying this $5 fee than paying the electronic processing fee through the state vendor site. The funds will go directly onto the student's tuition billing account. It's very easy, pretty much. It's a GoFundMe type tool for students. So they write a compelling story, they can post a picture, and then they can share the URL. The URL is private to the student unless the student posts it on their social media. Google does not index these pages, the Sponsored Scholar pages. If the student shares the campaign out onto social media, because Google indexes social media pages, then that can be found if someone Googles your student's name. Keep that in mind if you're a little bit sensitive about your student fundraising for tuition. I know some parents are a little concerned about, I don't want it to look like I can't pay my tuition. But I will tell you, if you were watching social media at all, we were joking about this in the office today about students who write, or young people who write, send me money for coffee and breakfast at my Venmo account. And apparently people are sending them money for coffee and breakfast. So nothing wrong with asking people, if you're really looking for a meaningful gift for my student, you could make a contribution towards his tuition payments. So the next most affordable option is federal student loans. And these we offer automatically to all students on their financing plan. I will tell you, I know there's some controversy on student loans are not financial aid. And for most people, they think financial aid is grants and scholarships or the free money. But understand that you probably wouldn't lend to a stranger 18-year-old with no credit check, no minimum income, up to $31,000 worth of money, and they don't want to repay it right away. And if they go to grad school, they don't want to make payments on it. And if they become unemployed, they don't want to make payments on it. And I want a fixed rate of 3.73%. Most banks won't sign, won't make that kind of loan to someone who's inexperienced or has very limited or no credit at all without a cosigner, right? So federal student loans are financial aid. They are a very good way for students to get started in money management. The first year student can borrow up to $5,500. Their amount will increase as the student progresses towards their degree. The maximum amount an undergraduate student can borrow is $31,000. There are times when students' parents cannot borrow a PLUS loan, a parent loan, which we'll talk about in a second. And then, or if they are an independent student, they can borrow slightly more. The student borrows directly from the U.S. Department of Education, and in case you haven't heard, with the national emergency, all federal loans are set to 0% interest until January 31st, 2022. So the steps that a student needs to take to finalize their student loans, and most of your students may have already done this, but if they have not, they need to log on to their Rowan self-service banner, and they need to either accept, decline, or modify the dollar amounts that are offered. So the student is in full control of how much they borrow, up to that maximum amount, of course. They can just straight up accept the maximum amount. They can decline them, and they can decline their unsubsidized portion, which is the portion where the interest will accrue from the date of disbursement, and accept only the subsidized portion, which is the part where the interest is waived while the student is in school, or they could modify the dollar amounts if they don't want to take the full amount. If they are also a first-time borrower, they're going to also need to sign their promissory note and complete the interactive online entrance counseling. This is a great module that explains to the student the rights and responsibilities of borrowing under the federal student loan program. They're going to come to studentaid.gov, and they're going to log in with their FSA ID and password. That's the ID and password that they signed the FAFSA with. And if you go to studentaid.gov, and at the top of the page, you'll see complete the aid process. It's highlighted here on the screen. And it'll drop down a menu, or if you just click on it, it'll bring up the full page here. And when they logged on to Rowan Self-Service portal and accepted their student loan, they completed step 3. They replied to their aid offer. Now it's time for them to complete step 4 and 5. They're going to sign their loan agreement, which is called a master promissory note. It's master promissory note because it's a once and done thing. As long as they borrow each year at Rowan University, their promissory note is good for up to 10 years. So they won't have to sign their promissory note again. They also need to complete their entrance counseling for their first loan. And that tells them about the rights and responsibilities of the student loan. It gives them some opportunities to estimate what repayment would be like, and to learn about the deferments and loan cancellation options available under the federal loan programs. It's very important, and it's very important that your student do these things. These are the interest rates of the federal student loan programs. So as you can see, undergraduate students are paying 3.73% fixed for the life of the loan. And parents, if you're going to borrow a Parent Plus loan, it's fixed for the life of the loan at 6.28. If I have any graduate students out here, it's you're unfortunately getting all unsubsidized loans, and you're paying slightly higher interest at 5.28%. All right, Parent Plus loans. This is a loan through the U.S. Department of Education. It's available for parents and guardians only. So grandma cannot sign for a Plus loan. And this is good for any parent, either one of the parents. So if I have any divorced parents out there or separated parents, you do not need to be on the FAFSA to borrow your Parent Plus loan. So let's say we have a single parent, and that single parent filed the FAFSA with their student. The non-custodial parent can file a Plus loan application. They do not have to have put their information on the FAFSA to do that. You can borrow up to that cost of attendance, that big scary number that we work with, minus any other aid received, and we'll talk about that in just a second. The Parent Plus loan is not credit score based. They're looking for recent derogatory credit. We'll talk about the credit in just one moment. There's no minimum income requirement or employment requirement, and there are no payments required while the student is in school. You can also request a 6-month grace period, which is a period of time after the student leaves school where no payments are required. Of course, interest will accrue from the date of disbursement on this loan, and it's fixed at 6.28%. And there are some cancellation options available if the student and or the parent borrower dies or becomes permanently disabled. So this is the Parent Plus loan criteria. It's very simple. They do not use credit scoring, and again, no income required. What they're looking for is on your Equifax credit report, they're looking for outstanding credit balances that total up to $2,085 that are 90 days late at the time of the application, or if you have a charge off or a collection account in the last 2 years. They do ignore medical collections. So if you have things that are in medical collections, they're not looking at those. So for instance, let's say you have a Lowe's credit card, that's your only credit card, it's $500 balance, and it's currently 90 days late. That's under the $2,000 threshold, so you would pass that portion of the credit check. If you had 4 or 5 different credit cards, their outstanding balances added up to more than $2,000 and all of them are 90 days late, then you would fail this part of the credit criteria. In addition to the charge-offs in 90 days late, they're looking for the last 5 years from the date that they pull the credit report. Have you filed or discharged your debts in bankruptcy, had a foreclosure, repossession, tax lien, wage garnishment, or a default or write-off of a federal student loan debt? When you are applying for the PLUS loan, you want to apply for the entire school year. The dollar amount will be divided evenly over the fall and spring semesters. This is actually a great way to know that spring is taken care of. You don't have to worry about it. Your financial aid and student loans are all set up and ready to go automatically for spring with no further action for you. The interest will accrue only on the portion that is dispersed. So let's say you borrow $10,000, $5,000 disperses in the fall, then you're only paying the interest on the $5,000. It's not until the second disbursement happens that the interest begins to accrue on the full loan amount. Remember that there's an origination fee for a PLUS loan. It's 4.228%. And so if you are going to borrow only for what you owe on your tuition bill, be sure to do some math. The way to do that math is you want to divide the dollar amount that you want to receive by this number, that 0.9577. And I'll give you a little example. Tuition and fees this year are $14,376 for the year. If you divide that by the 9577, which is just 1 minus the origination fee, you will need to borrow $15,011 to only cover the tuition and fees. It'll get divided in half. The origination fee comes off before they send the funds to the school, but you will receive just enough money to cover the tuition and fees for that amount for this year. And there's an option when you are applying to say, I want to borrow the maximum amount, let the school decide how much that is. We're not going to tell you how much to borrow, but I will tell you that if you check the maximum amount, we'll do the math for you and know that we can always reduce or return any funds. When we reduce and return funds within 120 days of your disbursement, you'll get the interest and the origination fee credited back onto your loan amount. So they'll take that part off. You won't be penalized for using the funds for a little bit or us receiving the funds. To apply for a Parent Plus loan, you're going to go to that studentaid.gov and there's a parent tab. Click the parent tab and you'll see the PLUS application. There's a very nice demo available if you just want to walk through the application first and see the types of questions that they ask. It is a very straightforward application. A word about the credit balance option. So when you are applying for a Parent Plus loan, they are going to ask you if you are going to borrow more than what your bill is, you're going to have a credit balance at the school. And how would you like to have that credit balance dispersed back to you? Would you like the money to come back to the student or to be refunded to the parent? Most parents want that money back to them. I want to make sure that you understand that aid is refunded in the order in which it is dispersed. So let's say you have a bunch of different financial aid coming in, and some of that financial aid requires the student to be full-time, such as the state grant. The state grant will only disperse if the student is full-time. And if he is or she is taking a class that starts later in the semester, then we will disperse aid as the credits click up. So let's say they've got 9 credits that started in September, then we'll disperse any aid that we can disperse at 9 credit hours, which are your student loans and your Parent Plus loan. And that's going to go to pay the bill. And then later on, the student picks up this other class that starts, let's say in October, and that puts them to full-time. Then the full-time aid disperses, which are the grants. The remainder of the Pell Grant and the state grant will disperse. That will create the credit balance, and then that refund will go to the student. This upsets some parents because, you know, you borrowed your Parent Plus loan and you expected to get this refund to use the way you see fit in supporting your student. So here's the way around that. The best way to get your refund is to indicate on the Plus app that the refund can go to the student. Then have the student log into self-service banner, sign up for direct deposit, and put your bank account information in for the student's refund. And then that way, all refunds will come to your bank account and you can administer the additional funds the way you see fit as a parent. Otherwise, know that you do have the option to enroll yourself in an e-refund and indicate on the Plus app that the refund goes to the parent. But just know that this usually happens later on with students once they become a little more savvy with their scheduling, that they're picking up classes later in the semester. Another thing to be aware of is that we do not disperse aid until the student's attendance has been confirmed in the class. So at the beginning of the semester, every faculty member is required to confirm that the student has shown up for the class or participated in an academic activity. And unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't happen timely, or sometimes the student doesn't respond if the faculty member calls roll, whatever. And so their attendance doesn't get confirmed right away. And when their attendance doesn't get confirmed right away, their aid doesn't disperse in a nice, neat package. Just know that if you're watching the bill and you're seeing aid go on and it's going on in just partial amounts, it has to do with either the student's attendance being confirmed or they have those late start classes. All right, so you've applied for a Plus loan. What happens if I'm denied? If you are denied a Parent Plus loan, you have 3 options. The first option is you can submit an appeal with documentation, and there's information at the end of the web application to tell you what type of documentation and what types of circumstances can be appealed. For instance, if you're recently divorced, you've gone through a pretty messy separation of debts, and there's some accounts that are 90 days late that have recently been paid or settled up. That's a great appeal that can be documented. You can add an endorser, which is essentially a cosigner, and then that cosigner needs to meet that credit criteria that we just reviewed. Or you can choose to do nothing and accept the denial. If you accept the denial, then the student becomes eligible for an additional $4,000 of unsubsidized federal student loans. We will email the student automatically of this additional eligibility, and they just need to reply to the email, and then we'll process that additional money. We do get the credit decision information electronically. We do not get the reason why the credit denial or why the credit was denied. So if you need to know why the credit was denied, they'll give you that information online at the end of the application, or you can check your Equifax credit report and make sure that it's an accurate decision. Repayment of Plus loans. Because the parent is the borrower, it's important to understand that the student has no legal obligation to repay this loan. However, we do know that kitchen table agreements with students are quite common. Just understand that legally your student has no obligation. There is discharge available in the event that the student or the parent borrower becomes permanently disabled or dies. There is an income contingent repayment option where they will set the monthly repayment amount based on your income if necessary. It's a 10-year repayment term, so plenty of time to get it repaid. The interest rate's fixed for the life, and they do give an interest rate reduction for auto debits. And PLUS loans are tax deductible for interest paid if you qualify for those. IRS Publication 970 is the resource that you want to use for all of your tax benefits for education expenses. There are deferment options available, so it's an option. If you don't want to make payments while your student is in school, you do not need to make payments. That option is inside the application. They'll ask you right there while you're applying for it. And they'll also ask you if you want the 6-month grace period. It's perfectly fine if you start off with, you know what, I don't think I want to make those payments. And I think I would like that 6-month grace period. It's perfectly fine if later on you want to start making payments, you can give them a call and they'll set you up with repayment. All federal student loans and Parent PLUS loans are set to 0% until January 31st. So if you need a short-term loan, this is a great option. It's at 0% right now. New Jersey class loans. So a New Jersey class loan is a loan that's offered through the state of New Jersey. It is not funded through taxpayer dollars. It's funded through bonds that are sold on Wall Street to fund the program. Understand that they have fiduciary responsibility to pay those bondholders. And so it's a quasi-private education loan. So they're funding the loans the same way private education lenders fund the loans. And so they do have to kind of abide by some of Wall Street's rules on getting the loans collected. These are the interest rates of the New Jersey class loan. They are very, very competitive. One thing I want to stress to you, though, is that the interest rate is determined by the repayment option that you choose. And once you choose that repayment option, you're pretty much locked into it. So if you think at any time you're going to need a full deferment of payments, you want to probably choose option 3. That gives you the longest term. It also gives you the option to not make payments while your student is in school, but also if something happens and you become unemployed and can't make payments, you'll have the option of the full deferment. If you choose option 1, which is make payments of principal and interest while in school, or option 2 to make interest only payments while in school, they get greater, lower interest rates, but the best deferment option you will ever get is to make monthly interest payments. So all students are eligible for this loan because Rowan is in New Jersey, so you can be a non-New Jersey resident and apply for the New Jersey class loan. You do, however, have to be a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen. So our international students or DACA students are not eligible for this loan program. You must file a FAFSA and the student must borrow their student loan amounts, or if they decline their federal student loan amounts, we actually have to reduce the amount of the loan by the value of those student loan amounts. And again, because this is the state student assistance authority, they recognize that your federal student loans are the best loans out there and they want the student to borrow those. There is a minimum income of $40,000 and a credit score. And I will tell you that the credit score is quite high. The student may be the borrower, but they will need a cosigner unless you've got a student who's earning $40,000 and has a great credit score. There is a discharge available if the student dies or becomes disabled, and that's at any time during the loan period. So anytime during repayment, if the student passes away or becomes disabled, the loan can be discharged. This is a new feature. It didn't always include that feature. The interest rate is fixed, and again, it's based on that repayment option. And I'm going to stress future deferment options are very limited. They're based on that original repayment option. Be careful. I mean, no one saw 18 months of unemployment coming with a pandemic. And I will tell you that these private education lenders, including New Jersey class, they did not set their interest rates to 0, and they do not offer full deferments. So just be careful out there. There is a 3% origination fee. So if you're going to borrow only what you need to pay the bill, remember to amp up that loan amount requested by the 3% origination fee. Divide your loan amount requested by 0.97. You'll get the right amount. The repayment collection practices for this loan are in line with a debt owed to the government. You do owe a debt to the state of New Jersey. What that means is they can garnish your wages, they can take your tax return refunds, and they can file judgments, and I will tell you that they do. Used to work there. I promise you, you're going to see them in court. They do show up at your bankruptcy case. You can apply online at newjerseyclass.org. I will tell you that they fight very hard for very competitive interest rates. Those are fabulous interest rates. If you're confident that you're not going to have a problem repaying it, this is a wonderful option for you. This is their application process. You're going to apply online, and there'll be a portion of the application where you'll authenticate your identity. You may be required to provide some income or identity documents. They'll let you know. They make a credit decision right there online immediately. And then if you are approved, they'll ask for our school certification. So all of these loans require a school certification. What's important to know is that after we certify the loan, they're going to email your student borrower and ask them to log back in and accept the loan offer. And then there's a period of time for all private education loans under the Truth in Lending Act where you have a right to cancel or rescind. And there's a little bit of a cooling off period of about 7 days, and then the loan will disperse. And so there's not immediate disbursement here. This is from their unemployment deferment request form, and I thought it was important to point this out to you. Again, I think New Jersey Class is a wonderful product. They have fabulous fixed rates. They fight hard to get low interest rates, but when it comes time to repay, it is time to repay. It is no joke, okay? This is the language. You can download this right on their website. This is their unemployment deferment request. Please notice that it says, I will be required to make interest-only payments during the relief period. And that if you don't make those payments when required, it will be reported to the credit bureaus, and you will not be approved for an extension of unemployment deferment relief if you need it in the future. So just know that when the loan goes into repayment, it's in repayment. All right, other types of private education loans. These are loans that are offered by banks and social lenders like SoFi, and they're based on your credit history and your income. The student can be the borrower, and that's what makes it most attractive to parents. They want the student to be the borrower, be primarily responsible. But know that your student is going to need a cosigner. There are very few loans out there that a student, especially a brand new young student with no credit or very limited credit, can get without a cosigner. They have to meet the lender's credit and income requirements, which vary by product and vary by lender. You can borrow up to the cost of attendance minus other aid received. So just like the PLUS loans and just like New Jersey Class loans, that's the math, is that big budget minus other aid received is what you can borrow as the maximum. Private education lenders offer fixed and variable interest rates. There are different products that you can choose from. They do have some limited repayment and deferment options. In most cases, there's not a cancellation in the event of student death, so you want to make sure that you're reading all of your terms and conditions when you're shopping for a private education loan. And these loans do not qualify for forgiveness for certain professions. So like the PLUS loan or the student loans, there's the public service loan forgiveness option, there's teacher forgiveness options that the federal loans qualify for. And New Jersey Class, to some extent, does qualify for some of those loan forgiveness options, but these private education loans do not qualify for the federal loan forgiveness programs. And you're going to compare these lender products at elmselect.com. This is a free selection tool that we use on our website. It's available, and we're going to walk through that in just 1 minute. So should I choose a fixed or variable interest rate? I think that's a great question. Sometimes you have to think about the overall economy. Do you think rates are likely to rise? You want to think about how frequently do they adjust the interest rate, under what conditions will they increase the interest rate, such as if I miss my payments and become delinquent, are you going to raise the interest rate? And if I raise the interest rate and I become current, will you bring it back down? You need to be very careful about those things when you're shopping with a variable interest rate. Most importantly, you want to know, is there a cap that the rate will not exceed? In the state of New Jersey, the usury interest rate is 29.9%. And so if there's not a cap, it could go all the way up to 29.9%. So be careful, right? You have to think about how risk averse are you? Are you willing to trade off, okay, I'm going to lock in at a fixed rate, and maybe it's a little bit higher than what a variable interest rate is, but I have the security of knowing that I can predict my payment amount, my rate is locked, I'm not going to have to worry about it changing. You can get a great rate now, and then you know that it's locked in if the market rates increase. And quite frankly, I have a master's in economics. I think interest rates are only going to go up from here. They may stay low and stay steady, but they're already at rock bottom prices. So I can't really see that they're going to go down. If I were to choose a private education loan today, I would be focusing on a fixed interest rate. When you're comparing your lenders, you want to look at the APR, the interest rate that allows you to compare loan products apples to apples. And you can see that on the application disclosure. Make sure that you're also looking at the loan offer disclosure. The reason why is the application disclosure is going to give you a range of interest rates. These are the interest rates that we offer, somewhere between 1% and 18%, based on your credit situation. The loan offer disclosure, these are all truth in lending disclosures. The loan offer disclosure is going to tell you what your interest rate is. And so that's the one where the rubber really hits the road. That's the one that tells you this is what we're going to offer you. You want to check the terms and conditions and make sure that there are things like, is there a grace period after leaving school? How long do I have to repay this loan? Under what circumstances would you change the interest rate? Are there discharge options available? And are there borrower benefits? So remember that this is a competitive lending market, right? They're competing for your business. And in order to compete for your business, they're going to offer you little carrots. Some of those things are cosigner release options, where after making a certain series of payments on time, they'll actually let the cosigner off the hook. This is a great feature to look for if you are not the person who's going to be co-signing. So let's say you know your credit is impaired, you know you're not going to be able to be the co-signer, you're going to have to ask Aunt Sally to be your co-signer. This is a great option because you can talk to Aunt Sally about, after we make the first 36 payments, you'll be able to be released from this loan debt. And sometimes that makes Aunt Sally feel a little more comfortable about signing for these loans. These lenders also offer interest rate reductions for on-time or making auto debit payments. So things to consider before co-signing your loan. Be aware that a strong co-signer is going to help your student get a better interest rate, but that the loan is going to appear on your credit report, including the payment history. So if the payments get missed, it's going to hurt your credit too. And that the lender can collect from you just as they collect from the borrower, and they can choose to collect from you first instead of the borrower. So just know that the rules apply to you as it applies to the borrower. You're joining hands with your borrower and promising to repay this loan just the same way the borrower is. And this can impact your credit options in other parts of your life. So let's say you're thinking about refinancing your house or buying a new car. These loans are going to be out on your credit report. And if there's delinquencies reported on them, it's going to hurt your credit report. And probably will hurt your ability to refinance your house or buy that new car if you need a new car. These are examples that I took from Elm Select of the application disclosure. The formal name of it is the Application and Solicitation Truth in Lending Application Disclosure. This is for a variable rate disclosure, and we're going to look at these live in just a minute, but I circled things on these disclosures that are important to pay attention to. If you are looking for a variable rate loan, you see in the big gray box, there's a range. That's your starting interest rate, okay? That's what we're gonna start this loan at. Down here in this little gray box, that's how much it can go up to. So this is an actual lender, and they are saying your maximum interest rate on this loan could go up to 21%. or prime plus 9. So 21 seems to be the cap. Also on the disclosure is a repayment example. The things to be cognizant of as you're looking at this. Now this again, because it's a federal disclosure, they must give the examples using a $10,000 loan amount. This is the highest possible starting interest rate. So remember back in that box, the highest rate was 9.79. And so this is where their maximum rates go. And pay attention to how long you have to repay the loan. Notice that if you defer payments, it's 7 years to repay the loan after you have your deferment period. So the actual term of the loan is probably closer to 12 years if you're a freshman going for those 5 years of deferment, and then 7 years to repay. And then if you choose to make full payments right away, you're getting 7 years after the final disbursement of the loan. So after the spring disbursement, the 7 years starts ticking. So that's a much shorter term than the full deferment amount. And that also explains why the total paid on a full deferment amount costs a little bit more money. It's a longer term to repay, of course, a higher interest rate, and a period of time when you're not making any payments. And that's why the total paid goes up. Also on the disclosure will be important reference notes. So pay attention to the reference notes. The most important things here are potential borrower benefits and how they determine the variable interest rate. So is it based on LIBOR, is it based on prime, etc. They'll also tell you what the eligibility criteria is, and please notice the bankruptcy limitations. Education loans are not dischargeable in bankruptcy court. This is a fixed rate loan disclosure, also from the application solicitation. And here you'll see in the little small gray box, there isn't a rate that it'll go up to because you're fixing it at the beginning of the loan. And so this lender is offering loans that start between 4% and 11.1%. And they also have the loan cost examples. Notice again, the 15 years after a period of deferment versus 7 years starting after the final disbursement. So pay attention to your loan terms and your interest rates. And here's your reference notes. So these are consistent across all products. It gives you a good opportunity to compare things. This is the search tool. This is the Elm Select website that you use. And I need to check time to see how much time we have left, but I will walk you through this live. I really do want to walk you through this live if we have some time available. I do want to announce if there are DACA students in the audience, or if you're working with a DACA student, this lender just announced today that they are going to make loans to DACA students, and they do not need to have a co-signer. I will tell you that DACA students are taxpayers. They are required to have a job and pay taxes to the federal government. And it's very difficult for them to go to college, and it's very difficult for them to get these kinds of loans because it usually requires a US citizen to be a co-signer. So international students can also borrow student loans from US lenders, but they usually require a US citizen or US based co-signer, and that can be hard to come up with if your family is in DACA status. So how much money should I borrow, right? I think that's probably why everybody tuned in tonight. How much money am I supposed to borrow here? Just tell me how much to borrow, please. You want to borrow for the entire year. I cannot stress this enough. Borrow for the entire year. There's lots of benefits for doing it this way. The most important thing is that there's only one credit check and one credit decision. Nothing is worse than you borrowed for the fall semester only, and something happened during the fall and you messed up your credit, and now you go to apply for the spring and you got denied. And now what are we going to do? If you apply for the entire year, you can kind of rest easy and know that the loan will automatically disperse for the spring. You don't have to worry about the spring bill. It's all set up and ready to go. When you apply for multiple loans, you will have multiple impacts on your credit score and any debt to income ratio. And that can drive your interest rates up as you continue to borrow. So if you have a little loan for the fall and a little loan for the spring, that's 2 loans. And that can impact your debt to income ratio. And the next time you go to borrow, it can drive your interest rate up. If you have a single loan, you have a single monthly payment. Just goes to, right? That's just common sense. If you have 2 loans, you could have 2 minimum payments due. So like New Jersey Class has a minimum payment of $50. So if you borrowed $5,000 and $5,000, you could end up with a $50 payment versus just a single payment of maybe $60. The interest rate, remember, accrues only on the dispersed portion. So even though you borrow $10,000 for the school year, the interest is only going to accrue on that fall portion until the spring portion disperses. And we will automatically evenly split the money over the fall and spring semesters for you. If you are in a unique situation and you need to borrow only for the fall semester, please be sure to reach out to us so that we can adjust the certification window and certify it for the fall only. We can do that for you if that's what you need to do. Just know that, you know, everything is set up to go fall, spring semester. Don't forget about those origination fees. When you're thinking about how much money you should borrow, be sure to amp up the requested amount by whatever origination fee is being charged by the lender. I will tell you that nowadays, most private education lenders do not charge an origination fee, and that's a great thing. It's easier to reduce the loan than increase it. And I really hate to be the person to tell you, oh, just borrow the maximum amount or just put in that full cost of attendance amount. But here's the deal, especially with New Jersey Class. If you were going to borrow from New Jersey Class, let me tell you, they can't do a loan increase at all. Their system will not handle a loan increase. You're going to have to apply for a second loan, even if it's just for $3,000. And now you're going to have this little micro loan hanging out there. It is much easier, and for New Jersey Class and all these other lenders, for you to borrow this larger loan and for us to return the funds. It's very easy for us to return the funds. When we return the funds, we back it off the student account and we return it electronically. And we return what's called the net amount. So let's say we return $1,000. The lender is going to credit off the origination fee and the interest that accrued on that portion of the loan. All right, so again, how much can I borrow? That's the maximum amount that you can borrow. If your student is living on campus, you could borrow up to $35,186, assuming you don't have any other financial aid or anything else coming in. This will give you plenty of money to pay the tuition and fees, the room and board, and it will provide for a refund of these indirect costs. So I like to give the example of, let's say you're going to the movies, right? And you have to buy a ticket to go into the movies, but you know, if you're going to the movies, you're going to have popcorn and soda. You know that your child coming to school is going to be more than just the movie ticket. It's more than just tuition and fees. If they're living on campus, of course, it's housing and their meal plan. But students need other things too, all the little dorm accoutrements that people are buying. You're going to need to buy books. You might need to buy a laptop. You're going to need to buy a parking permit if you're not a freshman, or find alternate parking somewhere nearby in a private parking garage, or buy bus tickets or train tickets or airplane tickets. If you're coming from somewhere that's normally very warm, you're going to need a winter jacket. And that's what those additional components are for. And that's why we allow such a large amount of money to be financed so that you can have money back to use for those miscellaneous expenses. I do want to go back here and say, for students who are living off campus, you can borrow money to pay your rent. We don't recommend it, but you know, sometimes you have to borrow money to pay your rent. Know that this budget, remember, is for 9 months, and we don't disperse aid until September 23rd. So if you're moving onto campus and you're going to need money in your pocket, plan to have some personal resources available, because these funds will not come to you until after September 23rd. So about a week or so after that is when you'll start to see the credit balances hit. That means you'll need to pay August rent if you haven't already, the security deposit, September's rent, and be ready for, get your deposit negotiated in order to make your October rent. Most of the apartment complexes nearby will take your financial aid letter and will offer some type of a payment deferment while you're waiting for your refund check to come out. Credit balances and private loans. So here we are again with the credit balance thing. If you want to control your refund process, you want the student to enroll in direct deposit at rowan.edu ePay site and enter the parent's bank account information to receive all aid refunds. Otherwise, if you enter the student's bank account, all of the refunds will go to the student's bank account. It's just that simple. Okay, private loans are refunded to the student, the same as any of their other financial aid. This is all aid on behalf of the student. It's the student's bill. You are being kind enough to assist them in paying it. So some final thoughts before we go to questions and answers. Do take advantage of the flat rate tuition. If you aren't aware, Rowan offers the same tuition between 12 and 17 credit hours. Takes 15 credit hours every semester in order to graduate in 4 years. 120 credits divided by 30 is 4. So you got to get 30 credits done every year if you plan on graduating in 4 years. Extra semesters cost extra money. If you can make some cash payments, that's great. Know that you can do a combination. If you need to do some fundraising, you can use some sponsored scholar. You could borrow a small private loan, and you can make some cash payments if you're able to free up some cash payments. It's not an all or nothing thing. You can do a little bit of everything. Borrow from the same lender every year. I can't stress this enough. Once you choose a lender, stick with them. Even if a better deal comes by, that better deal, know that that's going to cost you an extra monthly payment, right? So things over here, if you keep everything with the same lender, it doesn't add to so much confusion. If you have a loan here and a loan there and a loan there, it's easy to miss a payment. It's easy to forget about a payment. The payment amounts are usually higher because there's minimum payments on these loans, but if you make a larger account, you'll have a more reasonable payment. Ask us to reduce your loan if you don't need the credit balance. So let's say you borrow that maximum amount and take the credit balance in the fall to get your students situated and everything taken care of, maybe buy a laptop if you need to. And then in the spring, you don't think you need that credit balance. We can reduce that for you. We can reduce it in advance, or we can reduce it after it disperses. Take advantage of the PLUS denial and that additional unsubsidized loan before you apply for a private loan if your credit is impaired. So if your credit is impaired and you don't think you're going to make it through the PLUS loan, and I will tell you that if you don't make it through the PLUS loan credit, you're not going to make it through the private education loan, and you are not going to make it through New Jersey class, because New Jersey class has pretty strict lending requirements. And that means you're going to need a different cosigner. So before you approach that cosigner, take advantage of that PLUS denial. Go do the PLUS denial, get it. And then take advantage of that additional unsubsidized loan. And then that way it will minimize the amount of private loan you need to borrow. Know that if you apply for the PLUS loan and you get approved, you don't necessarily have to borrow it. You can keep on shopping, okay? But if you get approved and then choose not to take it, that does not mean that your student gets the additional unsubsidized loan. It doesn't work that way. And help your student make on-time payments. So Aunt Sally co-signed the loan for you because you needed a little help. That's great. How you can help is you can make those on-time payments or help the student make the on-time payments. A lot of parents, especially after 18 months of unemployment in the pandemic, your credit has taken a real hit. And if your credit's taken a hit, but you're back to work now and things are getting better, you might not get approved for a private education loan. You might need to have that other cosigner. But one thing you can do is you can help your borrower make those on-time payments to get that cosigner off the hook as soon as possible. Do not whatever you do, do not borrow from your retirement accounts to pay for an education. Here's why. No one's going to lend to you for your retirement. Everybody will lend to a student for their education. And chances are your retirement account is getting greater interest and greater growth in its investments than what the student loan market rates are. So you're probably better off keeping your cash in your investments in your retirement account and going and borrowing some student loan market money. We do not recommend home equity loans, and here's why. Do not put your home at risk for someone's education. Just don't do it. There might be some benefits, or you might be able to access a large amount of cash, but if you can't make those payments, you're going to lose your home. Versus if you borrow some private education loans and you can't make those payments, oh, it'll stink. They'll collect, they'll hound you, but they can't come and repossess anything. So those are signature loans. They're based on your signature and your promise to repay. They can't take anything away from you. And I would hate to see somebody lose their home because they borrowed up their home equity loans. Education loans, please be aware, education loans cannot be discharged in bankruptcy. Right now, for the last, I don't know, maybe 10, 15, 20 years now, there's been a bankruptcy prohibition on any education loans, federal, state, that means New Jersey class, or private education loans. So just be aware that you cannot discharge them in bankruptcy. All right, we're ready for the questions. What you got?
Thanks, Heidi. That was great. So I was trying to go through and answer some of the less complex ones as we were moving through. There's a couple here I wrote down I wanted to have you touch on for us.
Okay.
One question which was great, and I think that a lot of folks may not even have on their radar, especially if our audience is mostly incoming students or students who are new to Rowan. Can you talk about what happens when a student graduates in December? We got a question if you can bring the spring funds and use them in the fall term.
Oh, not fall. Okay, if a student is graduating in the fall, first of all, congratulations, you've reached the milestone, right? This is a wonderful thing. If you are going to graduate, I'm going to go back to this. So if you're going to graduate in the fall semester, we cut your cost of attendance in half, and we do a semester only aid package. This is very important that we know in advance, because your federal student loans do have some rules on them where we have to actually make some adjustments to the dollar amounts that a student can receive when their academic program is ending in less than a year. Just know that we have to prorate their loans. So you can borrow up to that cost of attendance for the fall semester. I hope that answers that question. You cannot just bring all $35,000 into the fall semester. Can't do that. And while we're at it, I'll tell you that Pell and state grant money pay on what's called a payment period basis or semester basis. The amount that you're being paid for that semester is the maximum amount that you can receive for that semester. We cannot take your spring Pell and put it in the fall. We can't take your spring tag and put it in the fall. We can't do that. It doesn't work that way for those programs. The maximum amount pays out each semester. Does that help?
All right, that was perfect. Yes, thank you, Heidi. Okay, the next area, really good question here, and I hope we can figure out a way. Some things in financial aid are a little bit complex to explain in this type of format. I always want to just get a piece of paper and write to people, but if anyone can explain this next topic, it would be Heidi. We got a question about subsidized loans, asking, well, can I get subsidized instead of unsubsidized? Or more importantly, I have siblings at different schools and one got a subsidized loan and the other didn't. So if you can touch on some of the reasons why that may happen and what a family can do about that, if anything.
Okay, yes, I can explain that. All right, so remember when we talked about the cost of attendance and using the cost of attendance in conjunction with the FAFSA results to determine the types and amounts of aid a student would be eligible for. So think about the cost of attendance like a cup. The size of the cup varies by the school. Every school has its own cost of attendance. And our cost of attendance, as you can see on this screen, varies by a student who lives on campus, lives off campus independently, or is living at home with their parents. So the size of the cup is going to vary. The size of the cup will vary based on the college that you're going to. So you might have a sibling who's going to a very expensive private education, and their tuition is much larger, and so their cup is much larger. You may be going to a community college where the costs are much less and there aren't residence halls, and so their cost of attendance cup is much smaller. So these things vary. What does not vary is usually your FAFSA results, right? That what's calculated on your FAFSA result is called your expected family contribution. Now, that's not what you're expected to pay. It's just an index number. And we take the cost of attendance minus that index number, and that number equals your need. So if you start with a small number and you have a large EFC, sometimes that math equals a negative number. And when that number is negative, there is no need. And if there is no need, then you will not qualify for the need-based loan of interest subsidized student loan. Sometimes, though, you might have such a wonderful aid package, such as you're living on campus and you're an RA, which is a resident assistant. Resident assistants get free room and board. And we have to count that in your cup because it's part of your components there, right? So that's aid towards your costs. And you might also have Pell Grant eligibility and state grant eligibility, and maybe you have some merit aid scholarship. And so you've got all of this wonderful free money, and there's very little room left for loans. And so you might have a small amount of subsidized loans, and you might have no remaining eligibility for subsidized loans. So although you might have a very low EFC, if the cup is already filled up with other aid types, then there's no room left for a subsidized loan. In those cases, if you do have an EFC, that expected family contribution, because that goes into the cup first, then you can replace your EFC with an unsubsidized loan. Another way to look at that is you can borrow your EFC if you need to. I think that explains it pretty much. Is it your choice? Unfortunately, it's not your choice. Some EFCs will vary slightly between siblings, and that is, we're going to assume that the parent information is consistent on the FAFSA. That's the first thing you want to make sure of. But sometimes students vary, right? They earned different money. They might have different amounts in their checking or savings account, and so their information is different, and that affects the EFC. I will tell you that student assets, cash checking and savings reported on the FAFSA for students get hit pretty hard. They take 50% of it and put it into the equation. And so if you have a student who's been a really great saver and has worked a lot, then they might have more assets on there, and their EFC may be slightly larger than your incoming freshman student who, because the FAFSA is 2 years old, they were a sophomore or junior during that year and they weren't working yet. And so they don't have any income or assets reported on the FAFSA. And so their EFC may be slightly lower. So that's what accounts for the differences when you have siblings. They're either going to different schools and they have different cost of attendance, different cups. Your EFC may vary slightly if your student's income changed or vary slightly between the two of them. And of course, their aid packages may vary, filling up that cup and leaving room for student loans or not leaving room for student loans.
I think you did a good job explaining that. I love the cup analogy. I also stole that and use that myself sometimes on the phone.
I love your video that you made of it, and it really does,
yeah.
I think it does explain it. It's a good visual.
Yeah, we'll have to try and send that out. We made a video for one of our social media channels that explains how certain things go in the cup, and it was really fun. So we'll try and find that to send to the attendee list. Another question that came up was about scholarships, and this is hard because a lot of students, who are looking at different schools or have siblings, as we just discussed, the way scholarships are administered at other schools are different than they would be here at Rowan, maybe. So Heidi, could you touch on what scholarship opportunities there are, when to apply for them, who administers them, and who is eligible for them?
Yes. Okay. So when you are applying to colleges, the admissions office offers what's called merit or recruitment scholarship. And they are the ones who make the decision based on your incoming metrics. So things like the SAT, if you took the SAT, or your GPA, if you came in test optional, along with, some extracurricular activities, or the strength of your essay, or things like that. They take a holistic approach to your academics. And dollar amounts of scholarships vary between schools, of course. As a public institution, our mission is to keep costs as low as possible for everyone. And so we have a tuition and fee that is much lower than a private institution. And a private institution then has an endowment, and they use that endowment to buy down that tuition and fee. And sometimes those numbers don't actually work out in your favor. So for instance, we have a cost of attendance for a student who's going to live on campus of $35,000. We'll use round numbers. And we offer you a $10,000 scholarship. So the net price would be the cost of attendance minus that scholarship. So the 35,000 minus 10, your net price is $25,000. Now let's say you cross the bridge and you go over here to our friend at Drexel, and Drexel is a $70,000 cost of attendance school, and they offer you a $40,000 scholarship. That's an amazing scholarship amount. And you think, wow, they gave me 40 grand over there. You're only giving me 10 grand here. You got nothing. You got nothing for Drexel. All right, let's do the math. 70,000 minus 40,000 is $30,000. It's still going to cost you 30 grand to go there, where we're at 25. So we're slightly less. And so it's all about kind of the optics on merit aid. Know that merit aid is a wonderful thing. It usually comes with strings attached, such as you must maintain full-time enrollment, and you have to maintain a certain GPA. And if you don't maintain that GPA, you can lose it and it may not be reinstated. It's important to look at the terms and conditions of those scholarships when you're comparing schools. I think we're a little bit late on comparing schools, but if you're still in that market and you're still looking at the last minute, am I going to really be able to swing the $70,000 cost of attendance school given the aid package that they provided? The way you want to do that is look at that net price. Don't look at our costs of attendance. Don't look at these big numbers. Instead, look at the bottom line. Look at the big number minus all the free money. So you're getting merit scholarship, maybe they have some other type of academic scholarship, minus all the free stuff, and get to that net price and compare the net prices across the schools. In addition to incoming freshman merit recruitment aid, we're a D3 school, so we don't offer athletic scholarships. Other schools, such as D2s and D1s, do offer athletic scholarships. They do come with some hefty strings attached for athletic participation and trying to balance athletic participation with your academics. Here, as a D3 school, we focus on academics. Athletic participation is a wonderful thing, but our focus is you getting your academic degree. There are also continuing student or foundation scholarships, and that application will open probably late September or early October. They will be awarded for the following year, so make sure your student is monitoring their email and looking for announcements for when we open our continuing student scholarships. These are, they're smaller than merit scholarships. There's not going to be any $10,000 scholarship in there, but you could get a $2,500 scholarship and maybe an additional scholarship, a couple of different scholarships all at one time. And the application cycle opens usually in the fall, so early fall, September, October-ish, and then closes January. We're trying to push the foundation to let us have a little more time with the application cycle, but the faculty choose those scholarship recipients and they need time to review all of the applications. It's an online application. It can be somewhat rigorous. There's a lot of questions in there. We're looking to simplify it a little bit before we open it up, but remember that just because you didn't get merit, or even if you did get merit, if you need some additional scholarship money, there is another opportunity called continuing student scholarships. Our application process is linked online at our financial aid website. It's called Scholarship Universe is the product that we use, or the online platform. The nice thing about Scholarship Universe is, in addition to foundation scholarships or departmental scholarships, there are external scholarships loaded up in there also. Did I hit all of the questions on that? That was a pretty big question.
Yeah, that was a big one. I think that was good. I have a couple small ones. So question about the Rowan Opportunity Program. Do we have any updates on approximately when those will be put onto the accounts?
Yes, that will happen after the COVID credits go on. So the vaccine incentives, sorry. Let me tell you a little bit about the Rowan Opportunity Program. This is a fabulous program. I will tell you that our President Ali Hushman, wanted to bring this program to our incoming students. This is a program that provides tuition and fees after other grants and scholarships for students where their parents are making under $45,000 AGI. So if your family AGI was 45,000 or lower, and you're a New Jersey resident and you're going to attend full time, and you filed a FAFSA, then we will automatically do the math. You don't have to do any type of application. You don't have to raise your hand. You don't have to do anything extra. However, because it's math, we have to wait until the bill gets settled in. And so now all the charges are out on your bills. Now all of the aid is being finalized, and soon the vaccine incentives will come on. And when that happens, our wonderful ASA or IRT, our technology people over there who write software programs for us, have written a software program that will automatically calculate that amount for us. Why that's important is because sometimes aid changes, enrollment changes, things change on your bill, and we don't want to have to be looking everybody up every day and redoing the math manually for you. So the program will be ready to run after the vaccine incentives are put on. I will tell you this, that the vaccine incentive will not be calculated as part of the Rowan Opportunity Program. So you're not going to lose out on Rowan Opportunity funds because you got a COVID, the vaccine incentives. Don't worry about that part. And we're only waiting for the tuition portion on there. I will tell you though, if you are a student who is receiving maximum Pell and maximum state grant aid, your tuition and fees are already paid in full by those grants. And so you will not receive additional Rowan Opportunity Program dollars. Even if you're living on campus and would like to use your Pell and your tag to pay your housing, it's not how that works. This is a last dollar program. So what that means is after your tuition and fees are charged, we are the last dollar to pay tuition and fees. If there is a remaining balance after applying all the other free money, which will include federal grants, state grants, and any scholarship or university institutional funding. If you brought in private scholarships, we're not going to use those in the calculation. If there's a remaining balance after those grants and scholarships, then we will pay that remaining balance to the tuition and fee amount only. what is important to know is, although that's very disappointing for you right now because that's maybe not how you understood the program to work, you will be coded, your student will be coded as a Rowan Opportunity recipient. And so maybe that's the case this year, that you're getting maximum grants. But maybe in year 2, 3, or 4, you're not getting maximum grants because your income has changed. You've returned to work, or something has occurred that bumps you up out of the state grant range or the Pell Grant range. And so now there is a balance. Then that money will automatically pay for you. So, the bottom line is know that tuition and fees are paid, whether that's through federal and state grant or a combination of federal, state grant and scholarship, federal, state grant, scholarship, and Rowan Opportunity Program. It's all about your tuition and fees are not costing you dollars that you had to either borrow or come up with cash out of your pocket. So I would look for the credit to be on your account probably by the end of August, at the latest, maybe the first week of September. Don't panic if it's not on there. I'll tell you that. Okay. We'll get to you. Don't you worry.
Thank you, Heidi.
You're
A couple more short questions. I know we're getting close, and thank you for those who've stuck around this long. I know we had a little bit of hiccups getting started, but a good question here we'd always like to remind families. It asks, when will the 22-23 FAFSA become available? That is October 1st. Think fall, think football, think FAFSA. That's my cheesy way to remind families. A lot of times the scrambling happens in the spring or over winter break, or sometimes in the summer, which can be more problematic, but definitely you want to remember that FAFSA season is in the fall. So October 1st is when that will open, and we encourage you to complete it as soon as possible. The application actually looks at your taxes from 2 years ago. So you don't need to wait for your current taxes to be filed. They would be looking at 2020 taxes. So you can complete that. Another one, Heidi, I'll try and take a stab at, asking about a negative number on the balance due. That is indicating a refund or credit balance. You can, I think Heidi mentioned it, you can sign up for your e-refund online, and that will be sent back direct deposit, usually the first or second week in October. So you want to make sure you get that set up. And again, you choose which bank account it goes to. So talk to your student, or if you're a student, talk to your parent, but you will want to make sure you enroll in the ePay, and that's where you will get that refund sent back to you in the fall.
Yes. If you are seeing a negative number on that account balance, oh, that's a wonderful thing. That means that your charges are paid in full and you are about to get a refund of money in your pocket to be used for those indirect costs. So things that you need to buy that are not paid directly to the university.
All right, Heidi, do you want to do any other questions, or do you want to follow up with the rest via email? I'm not sure how much more time we have set aside.
I can do a couple more questions. I don't have a watch here, so.
All right, I'm going to read the next question. If you need to drop off, we will not be offended. I will run to a power charger momentarily. Another question, though, that I do think is good to discuss. Somebody asked if the parents have to be on the FAFSA every year. We get that question a lot. Students say, hey, I'm independent, or my parents don't claim me on taxes. Heidi, if you can break that down a little bit for families about when can a parent come off the FAFSA?
So the parent can come off the FAFSA when your student can answer yes to one of those questions that they ask that are yes, no. Things like, are you married? Do you have children? Are you supporting dependents other than a child? Are you a veteran of the armed forces? Are you a graduate student? And most importantly, are you 24 years old? So essentially, if you have a traditional student, they're going to be your dependent on the FAFSA until they are 24 years old as of January 1st of the year that's on the FAFSA. So it's not the year they turn 24, it's they're already 24. Did I lose you? No worries. So I started the Elm Select website. Let me see if I can share that. I have no idea how many other people are still out there. Are you guys still with us, or if you've dropped off? You're in trouble now because I could talk all night about financial aid. So this is Elm Select. It's elmselect.com. You don't have to worry about that V4 if you're seeing my screen there with the V4. If you type in elmselect.com, you'll come directly to this website. You'll put in Rowan and choose Rowan University. And then you will choose that your student is an undergraduate, if that's what applies to you. Just read a little disclosure statement, a little more like disclosure statements. Know that the most important thing for you to know is that you have choice. You can choose your lender. We will not delay, and we certainly will not refuse to certify a loan because you chose a lender. You are also not required to choose from this list. You can choose any other lender. If you belong to a credit unions are wonderful options for private education loans. You can choose anyone that you want to choose and we'll certify it for you. These lenders all process their loans electronically through the Elm network that we use to send records back and forth electronically. And so this is the way to search for private education lenders. You can choose to display fixed rate loans only, or you can choose to display variable rates only. You can sort them by the APR, low to ascending or alphabetical if you would like. And up here is a filter. If you want to filter by different repayment options that are available, you can search by the different interest rates, so fixed or variable. You can choose, if you know your student is only going to take less than 6 credit hours, you can choose show me lenders who will lend to me if less than half time. And if your student gets into academic trouble and they do not meet the satisfactory academic progress rules and you need to borrow a private loan, you can choose to filter by is satisfactory academic progress required. And if something happens and you owe a past due balance to the university and you're trying to get yourself re-enrolled or get your student re-enrolled and you want to choose a lender who will cover a past due balance, you can filter that way also. So I'm going to go just real quickly and show you very quickly if you were going to look at a lender. So let's take a look at good old Aunt Sally. So here's where you can choose Sallie Mae loans to compare. Get the bar's not going to work for me tonight. Thank you. You can compare them if you just link to compare. You can use a calculator on them and you can look at details. Definitely want to look at details on these things. So this is the Sallie Mae fixed rate loan. And when you look at the details, you'll see, of course, it's Sallie Mae who's making the loan to you. The student can enroll full-time, half-time, or less than half-time. They don't require satisfactory academic progress. They'll lend to anyone pretty much. And they will disperse up to 4 disbursements if you want. Here's an APR range of their loans. It's from a low of 3.5 to a high of 12.6. They'll also describe their repayment terms that are available. And here's where you'll see different borrower benefits available. And then as you scroll down, when you come to the bottom, this is where you're going to see those loan application and solicitation disclosures that I showed you in the PowerPoint. And when you pop that open, it's going to open up a PDF that you can see. They'll bring you to the website because they have multiple products. That's okay too. And here it is. Okay, so this is that fixed rate. There's the box. hello. It will never exceed 25%. And here is those loan cost examples. And here are the reference notes to pay attention to, okay? They've rolled up all of their disclosures into one for undergrads. So that one was their variable rate smart option loan. And down here is their fixed rate smart option loan. So their fixed rate varies between 3.75 and 13.625. And then here's that loan cost and the reference information. All right, we'll go back to, no, the Elm Select page, really? All right, back to Elm Select. We can go the long way. What I want to point out, and then we'll get back to Q&As or end, is that you can do a compare, and the compare is really great. So if you click on these and you click on the compare, it'll mark it for compare, and you'll see down below here that it's one of 4. So you can compare up to 4 different lenders, and then over here you can choose different products. And just click compare. Navy Federal, also a good loan product. Hit compare. We'll go to Ascent, choose their credit-based fixed. I'm comparing all fixed rates. Come down. Must read titles. Okay, credit-based loan or a non-cosigned. So we're going to choose a cosigned one because the other ones are going to require cosigners. So we just want to take a peek. And now that you have 4 of them, you're going to click that little box. It's just like shopping on Best Buy, right? Here are the products. You can mark it with a heart if this is one of your favorites. And you can dismiss a loan if you decide that that's not the product that you want to compare anymore. And then you can add more onto the compare. The most you can compare at one time is 4 products. And that's fine because you have to read across your screen. And then you can scroll down and you can compare. So this loan does not require SAP or satisfactory academic progress. These guys do, this one doesn't. The important things are to come down here and look at the terms. Come down here and look at on-time payments. So this lender's offering an interest rate reduction if you make 36 on-time payments. Here's the cosigner release. Okay, this one offers a cosigner release after making those 36 on-time payments. If you sign up for auto debit, you're going to make your payments on time. You're going to get a little interest reduction, and you're going to start making your way towards the cosigner release. This one says they'll make a cosigner release halfway through the loan term after 24 on-time principal and interest payments, or the previous 24 months income is more than 2 times the outstanding balance. So if you owe $80,000, you're going to have pretty good income to get your cosigner off the hook on this guy. Cosigner release on this one is requested after 24 consecutive on-time payments. They give also a little 0.25 interest reduction for ACH. So Navy Federal Credit Union, great option. They are a good lender. They will assist you with a past due balance. Most private education loans will allow you to roll in a past due balance if necessary, as long as the student is getting re-enrolled. The whole idea is they want to see you get to graduation. So if you need to cover a balance in order to get back to school, then they'll help you out with that. And so you just scroll down until you see several of these guys are offering special offers. And so pay attention to these little guys. You can say, oh, I like this lender, not so sure about that one. And I'm not so sure about this guy. So now let's come down and compare a couple more. And you can compare them pretty easily right here. When you're ready to apply for a loan, you just click the apply now, and it's going to take you out to that website. Unfortunately, this does not work like Credible.com. I've seen Credible talked a lot about on social media, different social media platforms. Credible.com allows you to put your information in once, kind of like a lending tree thing, with a limited number of private education lenders participating. My concern with that is I'm not really sure how Credible.com is paying for their platform. Somebody's got to be paying for it. And so that might come to you as either a fee. I don't know. I haven't looked at Credible. Maybe there's an application fee that they charge. I do not know. Perhaps the lender is passing on anything that they may be paying in order to get positioning on that platform through maybe a slightly higher interest rate. I do not know those things. I do know Credible exists, but this one is nice, but you have to apply at different places individually if you want to apply at several places. I will tell you that if you're shopping for a private education loan, as long as you do all of your applying within a 5 to 7 day window, your credit score will not take a hit every single time they're hitting your credit rate. They realize you're shopping, same way when you're shopping for a car or a mortgage. As long as you're doing your shopping in a compressed window, it doesn't hurt your credit score so much. Inquiries on your credit score will only ding your score, 5 points, a minimal amount of points. So don't be afraid to apply at a couple of places, but I want to stress, compare these products here first so that at least these are my top two. I'm going to apply at this one. If I don't get approved for that one, maybe I'll try this one before I go ask Aunt Sally if she'll co-sign for me. All right, Kira, did you make it back?
I made it back. Sorry, I had to find a charger and then decided to try and put my camera on different screens.
That's all right. Have we scared away everybody?
We haven't. We still have a good number here. So really
Awesome.
excited. The turnout's been great. So we really thank you. These questions are really helping us see what the questions are. We think some things are important, but really you guys are the ones who help us understand what information we need to share with you. But the most important question we got of the night was, what is the giveaway prize? And I hope we don't disappoint anybody. I will show them off. If you're on our Instagram, you probably saw them earlier. But we do have a couple little Rowan mugs for students or parents or whoever wins. And I really like you guys. So I think we may do a third. We have this style and this style, which is like a speckled gold and embossed Rowan logo here. And we do have some FAFSA t-shirts that we'll be giving out. So we'll grab those at the end and we'll email you, and we'll arrange pickup here in the office or some other method. But that was a good question. Thanks for asking. We did not forget. And then Heidi, one last final question I think is important. And then anything else that comes in, I think we'll just send a follow-up with the attendee list with those questions. Most of them we've touched on, but we mentioned with the question on FAFSA deadline about the tax returns being a couple years old, which naturally led to, well, what happened 18 months ago? The pandemic and unemployment, and well, why are you looking at my 2019 returns? Can you touch on for us what to do if the 2019 taxes are not accurate?
Yes, we do recognize that many families were impacted by the pandemic. The idea of the FAFSA using 2-year-old income is based on this idea that over time, income remains relatively stable. For most families, income remains unchanged until some catastrophic event like a pandemic occurs, or a parent retires or becomes unemployed for some other reason. And so we are allowed under the federal law to make adjustments to your FAFSA using information that better projects what your income will be for the upcoming year. And we do have that process available. It's on our website. It's called the Income Adjustment Appeal. We do collect some documents and then we do a projection of income for you. So that's available right now for current year, and it's available every year. I will tell you that there's some conversation going on in our office about simplifying our income adjustment appeals. Right now, we do a very unique approach. The approach benefits the student the most We use what we call a trigger date. So let's say the parent became unemployed of March of 2020. We take income projections from March 2020 until February of 2021. And so while that doesn't seem to make much sense to everybody else, we're required to use a 12-month projection. And what we're hoping to capture is that period of unemployment. So even if, let's say you've recently returned to work and things are getting better for you, and that's a fabulous thing for you, but we don't want to project 12 months of now you have earnings. We want to recognize that you've had this extended period of unemployment and you're kind of behind the 8 ball. And so although you're getting back on your feet and things are getting better, we want to be able to say, yes, but there was this period where there was no income so that you would qualify for maximum grant aid eligibility. So if you have been affected and you haven't yet applied for your income adjustment appeal, please visit our website, financial aid website, so rowan.edu/financial aid. On the left-hand side, you'll see appealing your award. And if you'll indulge me, I'll bring up the website and show it to you. My fingers will cooperate. Is that website still, that's what's showing, or am I still on?
Yeah, we can see you. This is great. Yep.
Awesome. So here's our digital assistant. Okay, look, if you're up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're ruminating about, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Please feel free to ask Susan. As a matter of fact, if I ask Susan about an income adjustment appeal, Susan will take you right to it. And that's the page I was about to drill down to. Here it is, appealing an award, income adjustment appeals. We do have a couple of different appeals. So this is the one we're talking about, income adjustment appeals. We can adjust your income for different situations. So loss of income due to unemployment, disability or retirement, a termination of benefits. Perhaps one of your family members is receiving Social Security benefits or alimony or child support, and that terminated. We can take that off of your FAFSA. If you had a one-time occurrence, such as a debt cancellation, or you inherited some money, or you won the lottery, amen, or you had a one-time only IRA withdrawal that showed up on the FAFSA, we can take those things off the FAFSA as a one-time only occurrence. If you have exceptional medical or dental expenses that weren't covered by insurance, we can make adjustments for that too. We don't change your income, we reduce the income to recognize that you do have exceptionally high expenses. I will tell you that it takes a significant reduction in income to get you into grant range. I don't want to discourage people from filing FAFSAs, but if you had $5,000 in medical expenses, chances are that's not going to make a significant enough change for your FAFSA to get you into grant range. If you filed your FAFSA and then your parents have separated or divorced, or God forbid, one of your parents have passed away, then we can make adjustments for that also.
Great. And just, we had a question about the turnaround time on appeals. If you can imagine, we've had more appeals this year than we've ever had. COVID really impacted a lot of families. So if that's your case, you're not alone. We are going through them as quickly as possible. We have a team of counselors and supervisors working on them every day. The most important thing you can do for yourself is keep an eye, or the student keep an eye on their email. Sometimes you submit an appeal and we may need additional documents or have something we need to clarify. The student will get an email with a request for documents or just a statement to clarify something. If that sits there, and I found a couple today with families who have called in, it's not going to be moving through the appeals process of review. Once we ask you a question, it kind of gets set aside until you answer us. So help us help you by being responsive to those communications. But we're going through them. We understand it's a sensitive time and we're willing to work with you on those.
Yes, and I would add that we do review them in the date order received. So they get picked from first in, first out. And you do have the option to sign up for text messages. So if you are doing the appeal, your student is going to submit the appeal on behalf of the family. So they need to begin the appeal process, and they do that just by clicking this link down here, submit your appeal. But I will tell you this, Kira has made a wonderful videos under the help center. So if you need a little help, click that help center and go to the technical videos. If your student, while they are submitting their information, signs up for text messages, you can always put your cell phone number in for the text messages. And then that way you can kind of ride herd on your student, because I'm telling you, you need to make sure your student is reading their emails. We do everything via email. We don't send really any paper out of the office anymore. And so if they're not paying attention to their emails from us, they can miss very important things. I will remind you that the most important thing you can do is file your FAFSA and file it on time. If you are a state grant recipient, so if you've got tuition aid grant listed on your financial aid award, or listed as financial aid that's getting ready to pay that bill, if you miss the April 15th deadline, you will forfeit your eligibility for that state grant for the entire school year next year. And it is not a deadline that can be appealed, and there's nothing that we can do about it. The state is consistently in the top 3 most generous state grant programs in the country. Certainly with their recent increase in grant funds this year, they probably will place #1 in the country for generosity of state grants. However, they have very hard, harsh deadlines. And if you miss their deadline, you're out of luck. So please put a reminder on your cell phone. October is the time to do it. If you don't get to it by October, November, December, January, February, March. All right. That's 6 months. Please get it done before the April 15th deadline. Do not wait for the April 15th deadline.
All right, Heidi, I think we answered almost all of the questions. There's a few that I had responded to individually that you may need to contact us for more of those unique situations. It's always best we look at your account, but I think we got through everything. If you have any questions, ask Susan. She'll still be working when we log off here tonight. We will be emailing the recording of this, and we'll be notifying our mug and t-shirt winners on Monday. And thank you so much. We've had a great turnout. You know, we got a little of a rocky start with our technology, but I think we got a lot of content. So Heidi, I thank you for your time and going through this with everybody.
Thank you very much. I really do appreciate the opportunity to spend with you tonight and to talk about these important things. I know it's a very stressful time. It's also a very exciting time. One way or another, we can figure this out. Don't be afraid to reach out for some extra help or assistance, or if you have specific questions, we're happy to help you. I am very interested in your feedback. If you found this to be helpful, please let us know. Kira, if you wouldn't mind, maybe we'll put together a real short survey for students and parents to complete. I'm also very interested if there are other topics you'd like me to talk about. I was thinking about maybe doing one this fall about the value of making a small payment on your student loans while you're in school. And of course, we probably should tell parents about satisfactory academic progress and what happens when the student struggles academically and how that puts your financial aid at risk and what your options are to appeal it just in case.
Great. Yes, we'll be sending a survey. Maybe we'll have another mug or something like that to someone who fills out the survey. We'll select somebody, but thank you for the interaction. It was great. Be safe. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll go ahead and end the meeting now. Have a great night.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your summer. We'll see you soon.